Man, I can't believe this garbage. After all the questing that I've done, after all the backtracking, after the temples that I've been through, I've assembled pretty much all of the sages at this point. But no, in order to access one of the last temples, I have to go back to the past and experience a younger version of myself from 7 years ago. Whatever, let's just pull the Master Sword out, let's get this over with. Alright, finally, I'm back at the Temple of Time, and this must be the Master Sword. Well, guess I'm gonna have to draw it out here to do another time travel bit. Wait, if I'm going back in time, don't I have to put it into the pedestal instead of taking it out? You know what, the logic at this point is irrelevant, it doesn't matter. Alright, here we go. Tcha! I got it! Well, this is anticlimactic, shouldn't I be going back? Oh no, I went too far back in time! Stupid freaking mechanic! Whatever. Hey guys, let's get into the Ocarina of Time review. Oh boy. Hi there, bosses. It's the boss here with another video. And today, guys, I wanted to do a review. I've been playing a game recently that is considered to be one of the greatest video games of all time. And not only that, but one of the leading titles in the Legend of Zelda franchise. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I've heard many people praise this game, saying how amazing it is, how it completely changed the course of gaming, similar to Final Fantasy VII or Resident Evil 4, you know, kind of status. And I was very curious about this game, but after playing through it, well, I do like a lot of things about it. This game is not perfect. I don't want to enrage any Legend of Zelda fans out there, because this is my first Legend of Zelda experience, and while there are many things about this game that I do really enjoy, as I want to talk about here, this game is far from a masterpiece. And I'm not saying that a lot of games that I love and have praised on the channel are perfect. I only think there's like one legitimate video game that is, to me, perfect. But this game, this isn't it. The version that I ended up playing for this review today was the 3DS version, on a borrowed 3DS from a family member. I didn't play the original N64 version. I understand that this game has a lot of quality of life features that some people may prefer on the original hardware, but to me that is way too expensive. I don't own a Nintendo 64, and to be honest with you guys, I think the 3DS version is going to be the best way for you who haven't played the game before to experience it. But let's just get into the review here. Let's knock these elements out of the way right now. For the 3DS remake that they put for Ocarina of Time, the game visually looks beautiful. I absolutely love the way that Ocarina of Time looks, from the sprite work of all the characters to the luscious environments through Hyrule Field, Hyrule Castle, going up Death Mountain, for example, the Durango Cavern, for example, even with the Fire Temple with the flames reflecting off the walls. The enemy sprite work, even ported over from the N64 version for many of the enemies, look really good. I honestly have no real complaints with how this game looks. Link himself looks extremely detailed, even with a 3D version of him from the N64. Looking on the 3DS. I very much am impressed with Ocarina of Time's visuals. I really don't have any problems with it. And musically speaking, even though that this game doesn't have a lot of standout tracks for me in general, like going through the dungeons, Hyrule Field, or any other areas like that, there are some standout tracks with the Ocarina itself. The Ocarina music plays into a lot of different things in the game that I'll highlight here, but the tunes that you play in general, I found a lot of them to be quite catchy, such as Zelda's theme, for example, I very much enjoyed. I did find some standouts and whatnot with Zelda's theme, as well as the Song of Time as a couple of standouts. The physical songs that are played on the Ocarina are done very well, so no complaints in the visual or music department for me. The story of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a by-the-books kind of video game story, although I do think it's all in all good. It's basically Link being sent by Princess Zelda to go to different parts of Hyrule in the first part of the game in order to achieve 3 different gemstones to unlock the Door of Time, which is going to be used to stop the bad guy in this game, Ganondorf, from having access to the Sacred Realm, and by that extent the Triforce of Power, Wisdom, and Courage, which he would use to take over Hyrule. That's the first half of the game. After some events happen and Ganondorf takes over, you play as an older Link 7 years later, who, now old enough to wield the Master Sword, has to travel to many different temples and awaken sages in order to take back Hyrule Castle from Ganon and restore Hyrule back to normal, is essentially the gist. The story in itself is a by-the-numbers video game story in the sense that you are going to basically rescue a kingdom from a bad guy. You travel to multiple different locations within the exact same formula. You basically rinse and repeat it pretty much every single time. The intriguing part of the story that I was looking forward to was the middle point between young Link and adult Link, where young Link gathers everything he needs in order to access the Temple of Time to stop Ganon from getting the Triforce, and then when that fails, he gets sent to the Sacred Realm for 7 years, and then awakens as adult Link, and when he's old enough to wield the legendary Master Sword, he can go and awaken up a bunch of sages in order to stop Ganon from his evil plans. But that sequence went by so fast that it was like, oh, this major story plot twist was just kind of there. I mean, it happened. It wasn't anything that really drew me into the story or the world of Hyrule that much, if I'm being honest. But that being said, though, I didn't hate this story whatsoever. I think that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time has a good story overall. It just really wasn't what I was expecting from this legendary game. But it did work all in all, although it was very formulaic after a while, because it's basically rinse and repeat between temples, learn a new ocarina song to teleport to that temple itself, and you get the item there, and then you end up going back. It's a by-the-numbers story, but it works. While I like the story and the visuals of this game, as well as the music itself, the gameplay revolving around Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time revolves around navigating through dungeons, hacking and slashing enemies, and general puzzle solving in order to either defeat a boss, make story progression, or get a story-important item. I very much do enjoy the gameplay in this game. It was definitely a very unique blend, with young Link and older Link having each a variety of tools and weapons at their disposal in order to actually be able to progress. For example, young Link having access to bombs and whatnot, being able to blow up hidden walls to find chests, and adult Link being able to use a chain gun, or a chain link gun, in order to rappel across different chasms and platforms in order to make it. And I thought it was really creative. Although, I'm not gonna lie, some of the controls and some of the inputs for some of these were a little weird to me, and the game doesn't really do a great job at explaining some of these things, especially in the 3DS version, especially with the bombs for me early on. Alright, sweet, I got another bomb, time to blow up another breakable wall. Alright, let's see here, what's the button to throw this thing again? Because I'm not gonna be able to access any part of this puzzle otherwise. I guess just hit A? What? Are you telling me that I have to be moving in order to actually throw this thing? Oh my god. As I have to say, I very much do enjoy the variety and the control of both young Link and adult Link. I didn't have an issue with the puzzle solving, it was all very creative, the environments were very nice. Most of the temples and whatnot that I had gone through were actually all very cleverly designed, my favorite one being the Fire Temple, mostly because if it's actually having a story reason to rescue the Gorgons and whatnot that are trapped there, that are going to be fed to this giant dragon that Ganon resurrected. I like that because it had a story objective, and each of them give you hints on how to navigate the dungeon. I also like the Shadow Temple, not really so much for its design like the Fire Temple, but it's a more straightforward affair, and you have a seeing eye tool that you get from the well dungeon in order to actually see hidden walls, in order to go through doorways, or see platforms that you can use to jump on that you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. It does use magic power, however, but keep in mind, though, it's a unique gimmick. But one thing I wasn't a huge fan of was the Water Temple. Alright, looks like I found the entrance to the Water Temple. Well, may as well drown myself before I do this thing. Here we go! Woohoo! I know that that's not a very uncommon opinion. Most people that you'll talk to in the fandom and just gamers in general who have played it do not like the Water Temple. And I understand that Nintendo for the 3DS version tweaked the difficulty and changed the layout of many different dungeons, including the Water Temple. Me personally, though, the one thing that I didn't... Okay, actually, multiple things I didn't like about the Water Temple. The fact that you have to use the iron boots to constantly float up and down, even with having your water gear on, your blue uniform, to negate the issue of drowning, you still have to equip and unequip the iron boots and whatnot in order to go up and down the different water levels across 3 different floors. It's just tedious, and the backtracking, and then having to hit switches to change the water level every single time, because if you missed a chest or a key that you need to progress through a locked door, you have to go back through parts of the temple again in order to raise and lower the water level to get access to a different part of the floor that isn't flooded. Then you have to use the iron boots again to navigate new parts of the dungeon. It's just a pain and a hassle. There's so much backtracking and monotonous puzzle solving, as well as a forced gimmick, and having to use the iron boots to sink you to the bottom of the temple every single time. It gets very annoying very quickly. So the Water Temple was definitely one of those dungeons that I'm like, yep, it's not very good. The thing that I absolutely despise the most about this game so far, because the gameplay, outside of a few tweaks here and there, I really didn't have any major problems with the gameplay. Everything about the game up to this point, outside of a few nitpicks or grievances I've mentioned so far, have generally been good about Ocarina of Time. You know, I feel like it does do a lot of things well. But the one thing that I absolutely despise in this game, and despite the usage of the ocarina, was the backtracking. Finally, after so much walking and horse riding, I finally made it back to the Temple of Time. Finally, I could be done with this journey. I could go face Ganondorf. Everything is going to be absolutely fantastic. Link, come in. Come in. Come on, Link. I need you to report it. This is very important. I know that you just spent all this time backtracking across Hyrule Field to get to this dungeon, but we're actually going to need you to go back to a bunch of other random locations to grab a ton more items. Otherwise, you're not even going to have access to a dungeon that's going to take you probably at least an hour as a first-time player to actually get through without looking up a guide or anything, with some very frustrating puzzle elements. Yeah, we're going to need you to go backtrack all across the field again. Bro, are you telling me that you couldn't have told me all the items I needed to actually go through the dungeon first, before I went all that way, spent all that time backtracking across Hyrule Field, finding where the place was in the first place, and then even learning the Ocarina songs? You couldn't have told me any of this? Bro, I don't make up the rules. I am literally just one of the people who helps operate Hyrule Castle, that's all. Now, if you excuse me, Lord Ganon needs me to go wash his feet again. Don't tell him I'm helping you, please. The backtracking, in most cases, I should say. In the Young Link section, you don't have access to Epona. You have to travel on foot across Hyrule Field to go to, quite frankly, any area. Whether you're going to Hyrule Castle, or you're going to Death Mountain, or you're going to the Zoran Water Kingdom for Jabu Jabu's dungeon in those early sections of the game, or you're going back to Kokiri Forest, or the farm, or any other areas like that in the game. It's very annoying for all the backtracking. Link, every single time, the fastest thing that I could recommend is you either dodge roll or you do his little sidestep move whenever you're in your enemy lock-on. It's not very productive in that regard. The backtracking in this game got very boring and very stale very quickly. Time wasted that if they would have had a fast travel system that early on in the game would have worked out, I think, 10 times better. And I understand in the Adult Link section, one thing I did appreciate is, in addition to the Ocarina, which I've already mentioned I like a lot of the music for that you actually play the tunes from, it does have a lot of uses. You can use it for side quests and whatnot to change the time of day for time-sensitive side quests. And you can also use it to teleport to the different temples for the Adult Link sections. You know, you're at a temple, guess what? You get a song from Sheik, aka Zelda. Sorry, big spoiler there, but I think most everyone knows that at this point. But even if you use the song to teleport back to the temple, you still have to backtrack all the way back to your hub, to the Temple of Time, unless you use the song. Problem is, though, you might be able to go back to the Temple of Time, and if you're going back to the town, for example, at the peak of Death Mountain, or at the foot of Death Mountain, you have to travel there on foot or on Epona. And I know that the pony is a lot better to use and whatnot as well, don't get me wrong, but even so, though, it's still backtracking for the sake of backtracking. And it wasted so much of my time that I actively got bored, and I'm like, I really wish there would have been a more efficient fast travel system. I genuinely think that there should have been something different here. I mean, general other nitpicks that I really had with this game, outside of the backtracking, the boss fights weren't anything amazing either. I mean, they were cool designs in a lot of cases, but the boss fights, once you know the patterns or the puzzle gimmick to actually beat them, they go down in, like, quite a few strikes. That goes for the mini-bosses, too, across the game. Ocarina of Time didn't really have a lot of engaging boss fights for me either, and it's just, there's so much in this game that I genuinely think is good, but Ocarina of Time is what I would like to call a flawed masterpiece. I 100% see why people really loved this game, and why people loved the game when it released back in 1998. And even now, as someone who's never played a Zelda game up until this point, I very much enjoyed most of Ocarina of Time, but there are so many elements of it, from the boss fights to the backtracking to some of the dungeons that you have to travel through, and even some of the control inputs that they don't really tell you much of, that you have to blow yourself up with to find out. There's so many elements of this game that didn't age as well that so many other games have pulled off much better. But that doesn't mean Ocarina of Time's a bad game, far from it. In conclusion of this video review today of Ocarina of Time, especially as a first-time player, I'd say The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, all in all, is a good game. There is a lot here to appreciate, from the storytelling to the world building, to the music, to the beautiful visuals that they even have on the 3DS version, to even how creative the puzzle solving is, and honestly how nice some of the side characters are, and the availability of the side quests. That being said, though, the backtracking gets old very quick. The boss fights are nothing to write home about. Some of the gimmicks and puzzles that you have to do within these temples, including the water temple itself, aren't very fun to actually do. And the lack of information that the game gives you at certain points in telling you about what you need in order to prepare for a temple or a dungeon to begin with, it's all things that should have been fixed. I feel like that's all stuff that should have been addressed in the original game, and for the 3DS version, there should have been more tweaks added, I personally think. It's not a perfect game by any means. This game does have a few issues for me, but all in all, this was a good game. This is a game that I can still recommend to just about anybody, I would say. Well, with that video, guys, now that I've probably made pretty much everyone in the Legend of Zelda fandom mad at me, maybe after this video, depending on what they liked or didn't like about it. Let me know what you guys think about this game in the comment section down below. Your personal histories with it, what you guys think about the game in general, if you like it, if you don't like it, if you agree with some of the things I've said in the video, if you disagree with me and have your own opinion, just let me know all that in the comment section down below. It was really nice actually doing this video. You guys could tell, especially for those of you guys who've been on the channel for DeBoss for a while, this video wasn't scripted. This wasn't a traditional DeBoss review where I would script it out and include more skits and stuff. I tried to do a bit more with this, but Ocarina of Time has so much stuff to cover, and this is such a weirdly different game and genre for me, and series in general, that I really didn't know how to put this into scripted words. This isn't something I've covered in the past, like Bloody Roar 4, or Samurai Western, or the Crash Bandicoot games that are more structured and I'm more familiar with. Because this is my first ever Zelda game, and I gotta say, I was overall impressed with what I saw here. And I gotta say, I can still recommend it. So let me know what you guys think about this game in the comment section down below. And until next time, bosses, hopefully I'll catch you in a future video sooner rather than later. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.